I'd like to call our meeting, our work session to order. So we're gonna go ahead and turn the floor over. Greta, do you wanna kick us off, or?
I'm just gonna, some order of housekeeping. Thank you for coming. This is gonna be a 30-minute presentation. We will have a clock started here. We'll give you a 5-minute notice, but then there'll be 5 minutes to exit the room with 5 minutes for the next presenter to come into the room. Budget about 15 minutes for your presentation and then question and answer from the board. That's it.
Great, thank you very much. We'll go ahead and give you the floor. Thank you.
Great. Hello, everybody. Nice to see you all, and thanks for having us tonight. We're going to go through this presentation pretty quickly because you've had it, so we hopefully won't spend a full 15 minutes. My name is Peter Simone. I'm the landscape architect with Simone Collins. Simone Collins, this is our 36th year of operation. Done a lot of comp plan work and all kinds of other planning and zoning, parks and trail work and grants, etc. And we were lucky to be a planner here for 16 years. PJ? Okay.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Pankaj Makwatra, or PJ for short. I'm a certified planner. I've been with Simone Collins for 12 years.
Hi, good evening. My name is Todd Poole. I'm managing principal and president of Forward Planning. We are land use economists. I get to play SimCity for real. We've been in business for 18 years. I've been in the field for about 33. We work extensively with Simone Collins, and our focus is on providing market analysis, economic analysis.
Yeah, and we like to work with Todd and Forward Planning because they bring the economic element to comp planning, which a lot of firms don't include, or if they include it, it's sort of very cursory. Todd really gets into a lot of detail. Just quickly, our philosophy is we try to address these things on every project we do, respect local economies and support local economies, design for diversity and resilient communities, etc. So these are some of the things we try to do in every project. Sometimes we do better than others. Todd.
Yeah, so just quickly, our support for comp plans, we're usually focused on doing all the socioeconomic, labor and industry, real estate analysis. That kind of sets the baseline. You need to understand not only the market, for the town or township, but you also need to understand it for the region. Economies are regional in nature, and you're affected by what happens outside your boundaries as well as within. Additionally, and this is something unique that my firm practices that many firms do not, and that's the fiscal impact component, the growth cost component. Here's the thing: many towns create a comp plan. Many towns create zoning ordinances after the comp plan. Many towns, however, are in the dark about what happens if it got built out from a financial or economic standpoint. They couldn't tell you these many houses, how many school kids, how many service calls, or what is the revenue that we could potentially generate. So we bring that element, and we've been doing that with a lot of comp plans we've been working on of late, to help you as a supervisors and other appointed and elected officials make informed choices about land use. And so that's kind of our role in this, and we will be doing that in depth.
So when you look at the comprehensive plan, you're looking towards the future, the long term, and we want to respond to issues, things that are happening now, that's going to affect the township over the next 10, 20 years. And this is just a list of things that can, factors that affect the comp plan. Include everything from what are the land use issues today, and the big elephant in the room is the data centers. How do we respond to that? How do we be proactive rather than reacting to conditions? Now, right now, the state has been involved in a lot of model ordinances dealing with data centers, so the information's out there. So we'd use that to apply to new land uses that are affecting townships today. Another is traffic and transportation. That's always going to be a big case. How do we affect traffic? So we will analyze traffic conditions, transportation conditions, corridors to see what's best in terms of traffic capacity and issues. Growth pressures. How do we balance growth and pressures of development and open space? And this is something that Greta touched on in her great presentation from the last meeting. We have growth areas. What are the growth areas? They're around those corridors, existing infrastructure. How do we balance that with the preservation areas? Where do we want to see open space? That's part of a township's identity. It's very important. We also want to look at, housing is also important right now today. one of the demographics that has an issue with housing is workforce housing. And the workforce are those essential workers, government workers, police, fire, EMS, teachers. We want to see how we can contribute to their housing needs, as well as seniors. You know, people want to age in place. They want to age in place in their communities. They want to stay close to the communities, their families and friends. So what are some factors there? Are accessory dwelling units an option? Or retrofitting existing houses, is that an option? So we want to take a look at that. And also connectivity, mobility. People appreciate trails and connectivity. You have a great Greenways and Trails plan from a few years ago. We'll look at that, we'll build off of that to see where those gaps are and where connections can be made. So these are some of those factors that we want to push in the comp plan as we look towards the future.
So a little bit more in depth.
Can you speak more?
Sure, I'm sorry. We go through this sequentially, and typically our work commences first in terms of setting the table for the planning elements of the project. We also like to do the market analysis in advance of doing your first public meeting, because we want to be able to tell people you can dream within this box because this is reality, and everything outside of it is probably not market receptive or supportable. So we start there. We help educate, both yourselves and other stakeholders about what the statistics mean, what the trends mean, and how that will influence your land use policy, or how it can influence your land use policy. We also conduct interviews with real estate developers, real estate brokers, certain large business owners. We want to really understand beyond just looking at data, what's happening in the community and how your comp plan might influence it, or vice versa. So that's what we're going to do there. And then we're going to get into something very interesting, kind of this iterative process with Simone Collins of looking at build-out analysis and what those implications might be, again, from a fiscal standpoint, from a tax generation standpoint, from a service delivery cost standpoint. This will make you better positioned to make those choices in terms of the types of land uses and ultimately the zoning that is associated with it. And then, as I mentioned, that's the fiscal, the growth consideration is providing you with our recommendations and putting that in a very simple document that can be shared. And so as decision makers, you have that going forward when you are ultimately setting policy, as well as ultimately creating ordinances.
So this is just a quick agenda of some of the items we're going to discuss tonight. Going through everything from what is a comprehensive plan to our methodology, qualification and experience, and our public engagement, which is one of the most important components of the plan. So first and foremost, what is a comprehensive plan? So a plan is a community-driven vision for a future that guides growth and investment and decision-making for the future. And this is important because from our first public meeting, we want to make sure everyone's on the same foundation. So this is part of public education. We want to make sure everyone understands these concepts because, not everyone knows them. So what is a comprehensive plan? What does it mean to you as a community? What does it mean for your future, for housing, for transportation, for all the different elements? So we want to make sure the public has a very good understanding of what a comprehensive plan is before we get into any sort of analysis or recommendations down the line. That education is very important as a foundation. So what our understanding of the assignment is, we know that the comprehensive plan is an aspirational plan. It looks towards the future. But we also want to be grounded in reality and what's practical. And that includes recognizing limitations and realities of municipal governments, basing it on the MPC, knowing that this happens every 10 years. Pete's going to talk about the experience we have with comprehensive planning and our knowledge of MPC and planning law. Also looking at those implementation priorities. We'll look at the short, medium, and long-term priorities to see what's a low-hanging fruit, or what takes a long time, what's a capital project. So we'll look at all that. And also consensus amongst residents and stakeholders. At the end of the day, this is the community's plan, this is your plan. And we don't want it to sit on the shelf. We want it to be referred to and looked at for implementation projects for the future. So there has to be that cohesion between the stakeholders and community members. Now, success requires an understanding and responding to things as they happen in real time. That's everything from understanding what's going on with current market conditions and development trends, and we talked about the data centers, but what's going on in terms of commercial aspects, residential. We want to make sure we respond to those things, knowing what's happening and applying them to our comprehensive plan. Also, as we talked about before, listening to the community. Again, this is your plan, this is the community's plan. We want to get all that feedback that we can, and that's part part of the first meeting that we're gonna have, listening to the people, hearing what their issues are, hearing what they want to see for their community, and getting that into our analysis as we move forward, right from the get-go. And also with our methodology, we want to create a clear and easy to follow planning process. That's going to be an easy to follow scope, an easy to understand schedule, knowing what these deliverables are as we go through the process, so that at the end of the day, we have a plan that's accessible, that's filled with graphics, maps, that's easily approachable by everyone in the community who can refer to it, who can read it. Here we'll have all the technical stuff in the appendix, but the bulk of the body of the text is going to be those maps, the text that everyone can approach and everyone can understand. Again, it's those shared values that the community have. That's the basis for our understanding. We'll do the analysis later, but we want to hear what the public has to say, what they appreciate about their community, what they love, what they don't like, and what they want to see happen. That's one of the most important things about this plan.
I mentioned earlier, and I worked with several of you who were planning here for 16 years. And we, with your staff and the board, we went through some, I think, big challenges, and I think there was a lot of progress that was made in the township with a whole variety of issues. So we're proud of that work, and I think, there are two major things that our team brings that I don't think anyone else brings. That experience is one, but also the depth, and I don't know if anyone else has a Todd Pool who's going to look at the economics to the level Todd is going to. So I think those are two probably key things that our team brings to the table. We showed you our experience in the proposal. I won't read the names of the places, but we have a lot of planning experience. We're just finishing up our hearing in Town Menson is in a couple weeks, and then we just submitted our draft comp plan in Newtown Township, Delaware County, for adjacent municipal and county planning commission review. So we're just finishing up too as we speak.
I worked on the Upper Dublin Township comp plan earlier, and all of these that were just mentioned, I applied fiscal analysis to all of them, and their municipal managers were, I'll say they were grateful for it.
The community engagement is key, as you know, and the best compliment we get as a firm is you guys listen. And we just had that experience up in Toms River, New Jersey for Ocean County, where we're doing a $48 million nature preserve. So our experience is really diverse, but we really try to listen. We try to listen to what the community says, what the elected officials say, and we try to be very respectful. One of our taglines is all voices heard, all ideas honored. And we try to do that on every project so that we all want to be heard. And we try to do that with everyone that we interact with on these municipal projects. One of the things we always tell people is call us. I'll give you my cell number. If you want to call me, call me. Because the time we spend talking to people away from a meeting is very valuable. We learn a lot. And also, that person, whether they're happy or angry, and especially if they're angry, they're not going to come to the public meeting and yell because they bent my ear for an hour. And that's okay. That's part of the job. And we do that because it helps us understand the issues better. And sometimes it's better to know what people don't want and to hold our feet to the fire, because that makes us have to be more creative in things that we maybe will suggest to you. The public participation, we've laid that out, I think, clearly. With the public meetings, sometimes with some communities, we'll do a meeting from 4 to 6, take an hour break, get a pizza, and then from 7 to 9. If you think that's helpful, we can do that, because we're here, we're captive. A couple more hours is not going to make a big difference. So that's something we do if you want to do that. We have a lot of formal meetings, and we're also doing a survey, which again is always helpful, and it's important formulating that survey. We have a 14-month schedule, which I think is reasonable. If you wanted to tweak it a little bit more, a little less, but we think 14 months is about right. Our cost, which you made public on the PennBid site, we're right in the middle, and we think it's a reasonable cost. We've projected about 1,000 hours, comes out to about $118 an hour. And one of the things, again, $35,000 of our cost about is Todd's work. So again, I'd ask you to look at the other firms, what you're getting, what the rate is per hour, what the value, how many hours they're spending. And I'm hoping some of them included somebody like a Todd, because we think that economic analysis is really critical to the decision making. Our job is to give you the information so you can make informed decisions. We understand that role clearly, but that's our job, and we try to give you our best advice. So why choose our team, our experience? I think we have a strong reputation in all the work we do after 36 years of doing this. We really are focused, we understand the project. We try to be practical in the planning that we do, and that's again one of the reasons we bring an economic person in. And again, we really believe in the comprehensive engagement, really getting people involved. You know, one thought was, could we do the comp plan as a coffee table book so people could take it home and, you know, charge them $10 or something? I mean, you want to get people involved. How do we communicate this stuff, which is always difficult? So, with that, 15 minutes, longer than I thought.
Great, thank you very much. We're gonna move to questions. So I'll start with Ms. Scholler. Do you have any questions?
This is more for who you assign to the public forums. We have very intelligent, involved residents, and their passion may come off as abrasive sometimes or overly strong-willed. But they just want to be heard, and they want to be heard. Maybe they're articulating their thoughts wrong, but I guess who you match with speaking with the public, do you take that into consideration? We don't want to be talked over. We don't want to have to decipher what you're saying or be looking up on Google what words you're using in the middle of a meeting. So how do you match those personalities with the public?
Well, I mean, PJ and I are the two personalities that you're going to see most of the time. You know, I've got a lot of years of experience, as does PJ, and we try to be respectful for everyone, to everyone. We try not to use jargon. I mean, engineers, planners, we get into the alphabet soup sometimes and say, well, you need an MPDS permit. What the heck is that? You know, so we try to avoid that. Todd's going to be at some of the meetings explaining economic concepts. So
Very transparently, I understand that. I explain it to my kids, so let's put it that way.
So I think one of our strong suits is working with the public, and you know, I would just say talk to some of our references. You know, every comp plan is. I think Greta said in her presentation the other night. Anything you do is controversial. You know, you change the location of a tree, it's controversial. So we're used to doing that, and hopefully most of the time we keep our cool and be respectful.
Okay, that's all I have.
Ms. Irwin?
So, Peter, I had the privilege of working with you on the Linfield Master Plan. And I would just ask, you know, knowing and having worked with some of our residents in that capacity, what are some of the lessons learned that you took away from that you could apply to this comp plan? I will say, and I'm just going to be blunt and honest, that I, you know, fielded some displeasure with feeling like there was maybe a little bit of not listening to some of the residents and at one of our public board meetings. So could you talk about some of the lessons learned, what you would incorporate and do differently as part of this comp plan?
Yeah, and PJ and Todd both worked on that plan too, but I think your residents are no different than any other township. I mean, you know, thoughtful people, and always the reason they're participating is because they care. So that's something we always remember. In terms of Linfield, you know, the displeasure I got from people was no one wanted more residential units. And somebody at the meeting used really derogatory terms about people who lived in apartments. And I corrected that person very quickly, because I'm not going to stand for that kind of language, right? It was horrible what they said. So, I mean, I think, you know, we handled the meeting appropriately. You know, maybe residential would have been better in hindsight. I don't know. But all I'm saying is, you know, we tried to present what the board asked us to do. The plan was sort of vetted by your traffic engineer in terms of what it would do to roads. And, you
Is there
know, that plan,
anything you would do differently as part of this comp plan as a lesson learned from what we went through there? Or are you saying that it's par for the course?
I think that I would have pressed the board more for a decision, because it seemed like the board didn't want us to look at residential in hindsight, and I think that was our charge. So, and at the time, you had a very serious residential developer. Because the choices at that time were, I mean, office was off the table, obviously. So the choices were residential or industrial. So we looked at the residential because that's what we thought, because you had the interest there, that's what we thought would happen. I mean, part of our proposal, our suggestion was to have the residential developer work a deal with the state game commission, so the state game lands would become township open space as a part of that deal. That didn't happen, it's going in a different direction. So I mean, I think the recommendations we gave you were solid. You know, I reviewed that plan again and you know, quickly looking for tonight. I think it was a good piece of work.
Thank you.
Sure.
Dr. Walbraven?
I'm trying to decide which two questions is the problem. Meaning, well, what are the three most significant planning challenges and opportunities that Limerick faces in the next 10 years?
Well, we haven't done our analysis to look at, you know, I haven't really been involved with Limerick in the last few years. Go ahead.
I think, I mean, I've done a little bit of homework on this. One, obviously, I know you're facing data center challenges. I'm one of the firms in this region that works on a lot of data centers for both municipalities and developers, so I'm seeing it from both sides. We've got no skin in the game. We're just looking, analyzing it from what does it bring, what does it cost. I would also say you're going to have housing challenges because of an aging population. In the United States today, the fertility rate is below the replacement rate. You're not getting a lot of kids in most places. What you are getting, however, is an aging population who would like to remain locally, generally, but not necessarily age in a 2,500 or 3,000 square foot single family house. The trick is, how do you provide housing for those folks, whether it's ADUs or, you know, other smaller housing units, and at the same time free up housing that effectively becomes the new workforce housing for people that work in the area. That's the balance, that's the trick that we see, and we work from Ann Arbor, Michigan, all the way down to Delaware and points in between, all the way up to Rhode Island. Issues are the same, places are different, issues are the same. So I think you're gonna have that as an issue. And I would also say that because your population is relatively stable but aging, before you know it, it's going to put some significant downward pressure on your existing retail base, because consumer households don't spend the same over time as they age. And all you need to think about is this: for those of you who've had children, you spent differently as they were growing up and as a family. As those children left your household, you spend differently, and you don't buy the same types of things or the same amount of things. That has real repercussions for your existing retail base, and again, we see this everywhere. It would be a good thing to plan for it now, as opposed to what a lot of communities experience. It happens, and now it's like, oh, we gotta go back and revisit zoning, or go back and revisit it at the next comp plan. So those are probably the three, without getting too much into, without doing the analysis, that I see off the top.
Yeah, the other thing we see everywhere is, because you're a different community from when we did the 2007 comp plan, people are going to be more interested in open space preservation. They're going to be more interested in trails, and especially, if your two data centers, if they are vested, if they are able to go forward, it's going to be a real reaction for preservation for that. I don't know if you've put any changes to your zoning ordinance in place since you had those applications, whether you have any protections in place. I mean, certainly there are lots of model ordinances that tell you about protections, and I think we all know the issues surrounding data centers. But, there's going to be real, I think, interest in the public, also because people have been here longer. You've got residents who have been here 30, 40 years now. So people are gonna be very interested in open space issues.
You got 5 minutes.
All right, Mr. Brony?
Tell us about a comprehensive plan completed for a municipality most similar to ours, and what measurable outcomes resulted from that plan.
Well, Town Menson's pretty similar to you guys. We've just completed that. I think that the things that came up were accessory dwelling units, and the township is, I think the board is out in terms of whether they want to support those or not. They understand the issues of aging in place and things like that. Open space preservation figured very high in that. The other thing that, and PJ sort of hit on it, the challenges with comprehensive planning is to get people to understand what it is. It's really hard. People don't understand what zoning is or subdivision land development. So people coming to meetings, and maybe we do I think we've done this in the past, or frequently asked questions on comp plans and zoning and Saldo, really get information out to people so they understand what the process is. The other thing sometimes is even elected officials don't understand that everything in the comp plan doesn't have to be done. It doesn't bind you to do it, doesn't obligate you to do a recommendation. It's an aspirational document, and hopefully you get a lot of what's accomplished in the comp plan done. And another community I mentioned we were just finishing up is Newtown, Delaware County. They're probably more affluent than Town Menson or Limerick. To me, they have a real housing issue. The board wasn't interested in addressing the housing issue. They're just not interested. Unfortunately, in Newtown, my read is not much is going to change there, and that's fine. That's the board's decision. Not that it should change. But again, the big push there is going to be open space preservation. We recommended, as we did 20 years ago here, to adopt an official map. And in Newtown, they are going to adopt an official map, which is, to me, a small success, because that helps with a lot of things. So each one is different. We also finished one in Carroll Township in Dillsburg Borough out in York County. Totally different set of it. I mean, similar issues, but different emphasis.
I'll try to squeeze mine in here. How do you ensure the final comprehensive plan reflects the priorities of the Limerick residents rather than staff, consultants, or the Board of Supervisors?
I think for that, it's just that constant communication with the residents, especially at the public meetings. In our first meeting from the get-go, we want the bulk of that meeting will be the feedback. We want to hear what people's ideas are. What are their ideas for any issues or aspirations? What are some of the goals that they have for the community? And that's everything from schools to parks to trails to types of retail and commercial they want to see. So we'll coalesce and we'll gather all that feedback. And that'll help us inform our decisions. And even throughout the process, as Pete mentioned, if we're going to have a survey, we'll present those survey responses at subsequent meetings so people can see, okay, this is what I responded to. Here's what other people are thinking along the same lines. And then we'll address that with any questions or comments that people have. So throughout the whole process, it's transparency and it's that communication with the public to make sure that their values and their ideas are heard throughout the whole planning process.
I think too, our process, we've suggested 2 meetings with the Board of Supervisors prior to adoption. We can have more. I mean, I think you guys are the representatives of the community, so it's really important that you make your, not personal preferences known, but what you read as your constituents' preferences. Because again, we try to give you the information so you can make the informed decisions.
Constituents or residents?
Sorry?
Constituents or residents?
I don't know, I use the term interchangeably.
Okay, constituents is somebody who votes for you, and residents are the people that we're here to serve.
Well, you also have businesses. You have people who have businesses who don't live in the township and don't vote for you.
Right.
And they're stakeholders. You have a school board, you have schools, you have institutions, you have a lot of things. The other thing about comp plans, we've always taken the approach that not everything in a comp plan has to be implemented by government. The private sector has a big role here. And the key is to give the private sector a good understanding of what you expect. That's one of the reasons you adopted an official map. And that's helped with trails and I'm sure other things that I'm even not aware of. So it's setting you're setting the table for the private sector to do the heavy lifting on not their agenda, but the community's agenda.
Great, thank you. All right, we did an excellent job. And with that, Greta? Yes?
You got any final statements for your last 20 seconds?
No, just thank you for your time. We'd love to work for you again, and if you have any more questions, let us know.
Thank you, everyone.
Great, thank you for your time today.
Sure.
Thank you.
Thank you.
So are the two of you going to continue to ask that same questions? We can, right, got yeah, perfect, thank you. I'm going to continue to ask mine too, the same question, yeah. Yeah, you too, I'm going to do mine too. Yeah. All right, I'm turning the floor over to you. Thank you very much, Gilmore and Associates, for being here.
Great, well, thank you. Good evening, everyone. I'm Eric Garten, president of Gilmore and Associates. I have Stacy Yoder with me here, and on the Zoom or whatnot is Judy Stern-Goldstein from our office. Wanted to thank you guys for having us here tonight. I know we don't have a lot of time, so I will be brief. As I think you're aware, Gilmore and Associates represents many municipalities in Eastern Pennsylvania, so we're always excited when we have a chance to get in front of boards like yourselves to tell you about ourselves and how we can help your municipality improve itself. I am personally not familiar with all 300 years of your history, but I think this might be the first time ever that Limerick has had someone in Israel at 1:30 in the morning at a meeting, so that's where Judy is right now, so thank you for accommodating her. So without further ado, if Judy can hear me, I will turn it over to her to walk us through the presentation.
Thank you, Eric. I appreciate it. So first and foremost, when we read the RFP from Limerick, what we heard was you wanted something much more than a standard comprehensive plan. We heard that you wanted something driven from the bottom up, not from the top down, and that community participation is vital in developing this comprehensive plan update. We also heard loud and clear that in addition to the community participation and public engagement, that you wanted to employ sound planning, not just on a standard comp plan, but really to look into the economic development and tax-based strategies, look at fiscal impact and cost of living considerations, and basically what it means to your township budget also, looking into the future for sound fiscal planning, and really delved into a little more in housing needs than just the standard comp plan, really looked at the inventory, demographic trends, late stage housing needs and affordability or attainability for housing. So we looked at something, we heard that you wanted something much more, and I'm hoping that's what we read correctly into it, and I'm going to walk you through why we proposed what we proposed, which was considerably more than a standard comp plan. Next slide, please. We're going to start with community engagement and public participation. A standard comp plan really includes 10 meetings, which would be committee meetings, public meetings, the whole bit, and a community survey and continuation or continued coordination with township staff. Next slide. For Limerick Township, what we heard was you wanted a lot more. So we started with a kickoff meeting, and the kickoff meeting would be with our team, which is Stacy Yoder, who's with you tonight, me, and one or two of our planners from staff. your study committee meeting, elected officials, planning commission, whoever you think would be key leaders in this meeting. And we would start from there, and then we would do a township tour with those key people. We learn a lot through these township tours. Stacy's done a lot of these with me. We've been doing tours since about 2016. And I'm trying to think, Stacy, can you think of a meaningful one that we learned something very unique?
I always think of,
Can you talk?
oh, yes, I'm sorry.
Yeah, just
Even
slide
on?
it a little closer.
Okay. I always think of Forks Township. We went up there for a township tour, and we were trying to get, I guess, on the same page in regards to the vision of what they were calling a center. They didn't want to become Easton, but they still wanted a center, and it seemed like everyone we talked to in that committee had a different concept or vision for what they were saying a town center should be. And so it's important for us to kind of hear all that and then kind of work with everyone to bring them all onto the same page.
Yeah, a big part of that tour is getting everyone to use the same language for the same things. Too often we see that people use similar words to mean something totally different, or describe something totally different to actually mean the same thing. So this township tour gets everyone looking and talking at the same thing at the same time. We also proposed 10 steering committee meetings, not 10 meetings total, but 10 steering committee meetings. And for the steering committees, we prepare everything in advance. In fact, Stacy would have a meeting packet sent out digitally through our portal to the township, whoever our key person is, whether it be the manager or the planning director, whoever that may be, to send out to the steering committee. And also, Stacy, talk a minute about how we divide these sections up and sort of work toward a whole. We start with the table of contents,
Yes,
if you don't mind.
So obviously the first step is always to have the table of contents. And it usually starts with looking at kind of an analysis or an audit of what kind of needs you'll have to be compliant with the MPC. We'll do a lot of the background census work, demographic data. We'll pull all that together for you. And then from there, we work towards the public engagement portion, because those are the base of the comprehensive plan and everything that comes after that. And then moving forward, we just, we usually stay pretty chronological based on the table of contents, but for each meeting with the steering committee, we would have whatever that topic is, we would have a draft of that chapter presented at the meeting, and we'll have discussion about it and go back and make any revisions, make sure we're on the right track, that kind of process.
Thank you. And then part of that we do early on, but not in the very beginning of the process, would be a large visioning meeting with the full township. We like to use nominative group technique, and you'll see some examples in the pictures in the background there on the top left and bottom left. We ask a series of questions. We divide people into small groups, and both of these you're seeing sort of the culmination at the end after all the answers are written for each group on big pieces of white paper with post-it stuff on the back. They vote with dots, and each group then presents their findings. We ask questions to really elicit a lot of information from the community. Next slide, please. But in addition to the large community meeting, we've found that, traditionally it would be one large meeting, and all meetings would be held at night, and it would be very much on the township schedule and locations. We found in the last 10 to 15 years in particular, and even more post-COVID, that we need to meet the community where they are. And especially in a project like this, where the township is what we're hearing from the township is that they want it to be community-driven, bottom-up, not top-down. we're proposing some pop-up stations at community events. I know we targeted in the proposal the Tricentennial Community Street Fair in September and possibly the Township Blood Drive. These events would be determined in conjunction with the township and the steering committee, but really go out into the community, do some pop-up events, meet the community where they are. And you see a couple pictures of our staff at community events. We usually ask a couple questions, have people vote on the answers with trinkets. The first picture on the left, you see Amy, one of our planners, at an event for Warminster Township at their pool, actually, for their pool opening, and people are voting with little seashell type things and sand buckets. And the one on the right is winter tree lighting in North Whitehall Township, where people, adults and children, voted with little pine cones in little icicle type buckets with their answers. We also do these in conjunction with the large community survey that will be done online, and then have iPads and QR codes available so people can do the survey right at that point. In addition to pop-up stations, we look at doing some key person interviews. These would be people that aren't already involved in the comp plan and don't already have a voice of the process. So key individuals in the community, which would be selected by the community, and we would help and suggest with some of those. And then specific public forums with individual sectors of the community. And this is where we learn a lot of information. And I always smile when I think of one of the most fun ones was Warminster Township. Stacy, what did we learn at the senior forum that shocked me to, like, of all things?
So Warminster has.
Can you bring the mic closer to you?
I'm sorry. So Warminster has a lot of fast food in their community, except a McDonald's, which apparently the senior community really wanted, because apparently you can go and get a 99-cent coffee and just sit and, you know, hang out. And that was a surprise to us, that was what they wanted. You don't often hear communities wanting a McDonald's.
We had a packed auditorium at the Ant's Choice in their community center, and it was set up like, it looked like a small movie theater, but it was packed and town hall style, and I thought it was going to be pretty stiff, pretty formal, and it was pretty informal, and we heard loud and clear they wanted McDonald's, and I was just blindsided by that, but I thought it was interesting because they do already have every known fast food restaurant known to mankind. So you learn a lot when you go to the people and you deal with the individual public forums. We'll also provide data and content for social media so that you will see everything that we do that you can then have available to post on your website. White Marsh Township is a community we're working with now on a comprehensive park, recreation, open space, greenways, and trails plan. Not an easy title, but they create a landing page for that project, and when we give them content, they constantly post it. And then next slide, please. The other elements we would propose during the community engagement would be an online community survey. And when we propose the online community surveys, we usually have them hosted by SurveyMonkey. We have a pretty comprehensive account with SurveyMonkey to host the survey. You would get a QR code, you would get a flyer with the link to it, so that it can be advertised on social media, email blast, township website, meetings, etc. And we tend to make sure that it's a survey that will be filled out the old style, mail them in, send a postcard in advance that, hey, here comes the survey, please do it. Just doesn't work anymore. Again, we have to meet people where they are on their phones and on their computers. We also provide hard copies to the township if need be, if you think that there will be significant people that don't have access to computers. But we found that even in the communities where township staff is positive that they'll have a large portion of people that will not do that. They want paper. We find very few paper surveys, but we supply them also. We make sure the survey can be answered within 10 minutes. another nice tool from SurveyMonkey. It'll tell you how long it should take to answer the survey. We make sure we know what the number of respondents is to make it statistically significant. And we like to ask our questions using a Likert scale so that we get a quantitative answer at the end of each one. For instance, the little blurb that's in the background here is one for Silbury Township, and it's ranking how often people use different items in the parks. And it's on a scale of 1 to 5. So it's never, rarely, sometimes, often, and always. And then we can rank them based on the numerical scale at the end so that we have data that's usable. And then we also have a couple open-ended questions, but we do like data, especially when we're getting a lot of community input and trying to get something that's created from the bottom up so that it will be supported by the community. Next, we have the public meetings for adoption. These are the required meetings. These are not meetings that are to really get a lot of more input. At this point, we should have received a lot of public input already, and we're doing the formal presentations. And then also continued coordination with township staff. Next slide, Stacy. Then I'm going to run you through a couple other sections of the plan that we were proposing a bit more than normal. The biggest section, and if you look at our cost proposal, you'll see the significant number of hours in the community engagement section, but a couple others really merit just a brief discussion. A standard comprehensive plan deals with economic development in a pretty standard way. It's basically an analysis of economic characteristics and trends, not all that detailed. But we proposed a bit more because we heard that you were looking for a bit more. Next slide, please. So we're looking at using more data again. A lot of data in the comp plan, but we do use Esri software, which is the ARC Info, used to be ArcView also. And there's a module, the ARC Info Business Analyst module, that has a lot of socioeconomic data, spending trends, market profile of the community. So we can get a lot of data through that. And from that, in conjunction with the community input and working with the steering committee, we would suggest developing goals and objectives, including prospects for growth and redevelopment, adaptive reuse of developed sites. Limerick Township is not a new expanding township anymore. Limerick Township is a maturing township that is seeing some adaptive reuse and redevelopment because there has been so much development already in your non-residential areas. You're starting to see that redevelopment, and it's important that we look to make sure that you continue to have a sustainable tax base so that you have ratables to offer the goods and services to your community and provide the tax structure so you can continue providing the government services also. And then we would look at high priority topics, including economic studies for anything that would be very specific. Next slide. And we'll also then start the fiscal impact of potential growth based on land use type and intensity, and really delve into the fiscal portion of quite a bit more than just your standard comp plan. Next slide. So all of that takes us up to the land use map, which would be developed based again on heavy community input. But land use and housing needs, just the standard comp plan looks at the current population and your population projections as developed from the Delaware Valley Regional Planning Commission. And then we go through the calculations, and we being me, Stacy, our planning team, and we make sure that the year fair share and projected growth based on the projections from DBRPC can be accommodated in the township. So we look first at your current zoning districts and see if that fair share of projected additional housing can be fit into the existing zoning. And if not, then we look at expanding districts or possibly adding additional density options into districts as suggestions. But that's standard and that's not that detailed. Next slide, please. So we would look at not just looking at the NPC requirements, but also looking more, again, this is right from your proposal. We read it, we heard it, and we're proposing then to really look at more of an analysis of your current housing inventory, the age type, demographic trends, and look at the life stage housing trends and their projected impact on future housing needs in the township. Is household size shrinking? Is it getting larger? What is the household structure? What is the average ages? Where are they in their lifestyle, in their life cycle? What does it mean? Next slide, please. And then also look at sort of the big thing that's facing a lot of communities right now is the housing affordability and attainability. And we're expecting to hear a lot about this through the community engagement. We want to hear what the community values are with this and what the thoughts are from the community, but then look at that and look at how housing affordability and attainability really affects the township with potential job force. Like where are your workers living? Can they afford to live near where they work in the township? And look and see what that does to the community. And then from that, develop specific recommendations for potential zoning amendments, map updates to address future housing needs of the township. Again, based on community input and hard data. Next slide, please. So I've been talking quite a bit, but I'm gonna wrap that part up and get into Q&A. Basically, the G&A differences that we have the planning expertise. If you read our proposal, you'll see that Stacy and I together have been working together over 20 years. We have 67 years, actually over 67 years of experience just between the two of us before we even add in the rest of our team. We really deal with customized plans for individual municipalities. And this one, we heard that you want significant community engagement, and that's what we propose to give you in this proposal. And we have regional understanding, local knowledge rooted in history, developed over decades, and we rely on that for proficiency and sound judgment. And then trust, reputation, and commitment. We, the employees at GA, are employee owners, and we're fully committed to helping you succeed. And quite honestly, doing something more than just a run-of-the-mill comp plan is much more fun and much more exciting, and we really do become part of the community as we do this. So that is what we propose. Yes, next slide, and then we could probably turn the PowerPoint off.
I think that was it.
All right, we'll go to board questions. Ms. Schuler?
No questions.
Ms. Irwin?
The only question I have is, could you talk a little bit about your data sources and what you're using when you look at some of your data? One of the prior presentations talked about using census data, and then I saw that you used the Delaware Valley Regional Planning Commission, but just because we want this to be Limerick specific, I'd like to understand where your data sources are.
Judy, did you hear that?
No, I didn't.
Okay, so Linda asked the question, can you talk a little bit more about your data sources? She heard you mention census and DVRPC, but if you could expand a little bit more on what your data sources are and how they're Limerick centric.
Yes.
Oh, definitely. First, we do use census data, which would be drilled down to the municipal level. So we use the census and the census updates, the updates that are issued every 2 years and 5 years. So that would be one data source. DVRPC is the source we would use for the population projections or looking out into the future for what Limerick's fair share of housing or Limerick's expected population growth, and then based on household size, develop that into your fair share of housing. So that would be DVRPC, and that would be, again, driven down to the municipal level, so it would be Limerick Township specific. And then we also have some data from our software package that we use for our GIS, which is the business analyst, and that also will be driven down to the township level, specifically for Limerick Township. Other data would come from the community engagement in the way in which the survey questions are set up. We can get some pretty hard data on community opinions from that also. And then incidental to that would be data that would be obtained from Montgomery County Planning Commission based on the studies that they're mandated to do, and they do over time. We would certainly avail ourselves of all of that information also.
Thank you.
I hope that answers your question.
It did, thank you. And I do just want to say that I do like a lot of your community outreach approaches. I like those ideas a lot. Thank you.
It's the most fun part of the comprehensive plan.
Linda said that she really likes your community outreach component, and you answered her question.
Yes, thank you.
Thank you. And Stacy echoed my opinion also. It is the most fun part of it, and it always is the most fun part.
Dr. Walraven?
What are the 3 most significant planning challenges and opportunities for Limerick?
Cheryl's asking, what are the 3 most significant planning challenges for Limerick Township?
For Limerick Township, and again, we haven't gotten into the township data very deeply yet. I certainly do take a look when we do a proposal, and being a fairly local person, I grew up in Doylestown, and as Eric said earlier, we do all live and work in our greater community, so we do know the area pretty well in general. And I've done private work in Limerick in the late 80s, early 90s, so I go back a while. I'd say that the challenges would be dealing with, I don't want to say the aftermath of a lot of development, but dealing with what happens in the municipality as you're maturing and you've had significant development over a sustained period. What happens then to your tax base when that development starts changing? What happens with all the things that you need to do and spend money on once infrastructure has reached a certain age? What happens when big box stores in multiple shopping centers might be vacant because they're turning over or things are changing based on shopping habits and, let's face it, COVID? What happens when people aren't going out to stores anymore, but they're doing a lot of stuff online? We start looking at experiential options for non-residential development. We look at what happens with adaptive reuse. We make sure that we would need to help Limerick make sure that you're situated to best accommodate those changes and not have empty boxes and empty parking lots. And also, of course, keep current with all the newest technology and what's happening with the data center things of the world. There's always something on the horizon. We want to make sure you're situated not just for the immediate future, but for more of a long range future, to be more flexible and accommodating with your land use options. I hope I hit that one, Cheryl.
We have 3 minutes.
Mr.
And Cheryl said
Maroney?
yes, thank you.
Thank you.
Tell us about a comprehensive plan completed for a municipality most similar to us, and what measurable outcomes resulted from the plan.
Judy, Pat
And
asked, did you hear that?
sorry. That one I actually heard, yes. I think he's sitting closer to you possibly. Yeah. So a comprehensive plan that was most similar to Limerick Township, and what measurable or quantifiable came out of that one, was that correct?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay. So I think the one closest to Limerick, and we do a lot, that some of them are more rural, some of them are a little more urban, some are boroughs. I think the one most comparable might be Montgomery Township, dealing with a lot of adaptive reuse and redevelopment, dealing with significant growth in the past, not as recent as Limerick, but similar. And what happened there was we really dealt with looking at some different areas for mixed use development, not segregating the residential and non-residential into sort of the traditional Euclidean zoning, but looking at future land use patterns where there could be mixed use, and introducing options for residential into some of those existing non-residential areas for redevelopment. And they also have the Montgomery Mall, which unfortunately is not owned or controlled by the township, but there are options on the table for what would happen in the future if it would be obtained by somebody who would want to redevelop it to make it economically viable again and a center of the community once again. So that would be the one that would be most similar. And we completed that I believe 2022, 23.
Great. And I do have one, but I think how do you ensure that the final comprehensive plan reflects the priorities of the Limerick residents rather than staff, consultants, or the Board of Supervisors?
Connie asks, how do you ensure that the final result of the comprehensive plan reflects the sentiments of the residents and not township staff or the Board of Supervisors? Did I say that correctly, Connie?
Thank you, Connie. I think the best way we can do that is the way we've heard the way the RFP was written and how we responded to it would be with significant community input, public engagement, and really making sure that it's being driven by what we're hearing from the residents, and that it be bottom up, not top down. Bottom up would then be supported by the community because we're proposing implementation based on community input. You're never going to make everyone happy, but we want to make the majority of the community happy as much as possible. And if the majority of the community buys into this, they'll be then pressuring the board in an ever so nicely way, I hope, to implement the comprehensive plan. At the end of the plan, you'll have an action plan. It'll go through goals, objectives, and action items, and it's a checklist. And I like to say it's so that the board can do future planning, both capital planning and land use planning, economic planning. But really, it's a checklist that you can hold yourselves accountable. And on the flip side of that, the public can also hold you accountable.
Okay, thank you.
Awesome, thank you very much. We really appreciate your time tonight.
And I really appreciate you zooming in from Israel at now 2 a.m. So thank you very much. Thank you all for being here.
Thank you
Much
very much.
appreciated.
Thank you.
Thank you so much for accommodating us.
Thank you.
Thank you, Greta. I appreciate it. And to Tim too, and all the IT struggles, I appreciate everything.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you. Thank you.
All set. I will ask that you bring the microphone close and just talk into it because we want the people on YouTube at home. Not that they're live streaming now, but we will upload it, so we want them to be able to hear you.
Thanks so much for having us tonight. We truly appreciate it. My name is Chris Fazio. I'm a professional engineer with Remington and Vernick Engineers, and I oversee all of our operations in Pennsylvania, so I'll be beginning the presentation. This is how we've organized it. We're going to be very respectful of your time. We understand we have 15 minutes, so we're going to do a very concise presentation within those 15 minutes, and we look forward to fielding your questions afterwards. We're going to start with who we are, which Owen Hines will lead the conversation.
Thank you, Chris. So who are we? Remington Vernick Engineers is a storied municipal engineering firm. So we've been around since 1901, serving local communities like yours. And recently we joined with Ardura, which is a national firm bringing world-class expertise. We think this is a fantastic marriage that strengthens our ability to serve our clients. Tell you a little bit more about who we are. We are experts. This effort's going to be led by certified planners, knowledgeable in the Pennsylvania Municipalities Planning Code, making sure the plan we're putting together is in accordance with local rules and can be implemented after you're done. We also operate a no vacuum situation. So, of course, it's going to be led by planners, but we work alongside engineers, environmental professionals, GIS professionals. We even have an aviation division. So we have all sorts of expertise that we're going to be bringing to the table to make sure this is the most comprehensive and robust plan we can. We have a note on,
Can you put the mic up towards your, sorry,
I'm a pretty tall guy, yeah. We have a national reach,
that's better.
and we have local roots. So I mentioned our merger with Arduro. We're actually a top 50 design firm in the country, top 10 in water disciplines. This national expertise, married with our commitment to service as a local municipal engineering firm, is a great asset to an effort like this. We're also data-driven. We are fortunate enough to have a great GIS department, have had it for years, led by Chris Gross and Kevin Zielinski. Kevin actually teaches GIS at a local Rowan University College. And so that knowledge about data and trends is going to be a great foundation as we're going forward and shaping your policy.
So we just want to take a chance just to introduce the team, which is multidisciplinary. Again, my name is Chris Fazio. I'm the municipal practice leader for Pennsylvania. Over 30 years of experience. I have access to all of the resources that are available in the company. It's one-stop shopping. Anything you need to get this comprehensive plan done, we have all under one roof with lots of multidisciplinary professionals. I have over 30 years of experience. I've done comprehensive plans before. I've led task force. I've sat on the task force. I've done multiple comprehensive plans. So I'm going to be a resource and make sure the quality control is in the right place if we're so fortunate to get this contract. Owen?
Thank you, Chris. I've got almost 20 years of experience at this point, leading municipal services out of our King of Prussia office, working with a lot of the towns in southeast Pennsylvania. I'm also a resident in the Fox Youth community just across Township Line Road. My wife and 2 boys live in the area. I coach baseball at CP. My other son goes to the far post for soccer. I'm committed to giving you the best comprehensive plan because it's my neighbors, it's my kids who are going to be here for the next couple decades.
And we'll address that right up front. And my name's Ashton Jones. I am a AICP planner, and I'm also a certified floodplain manager. I grew up in the vicinity. I grew up in East Pikeland and West Vincent Townships via move. I'm familiar with the area. I've been to, growing up, went to Waltz's Golf Farm, the Limerick Diner, the bowling alley, all of it. I think the thing that I want to say is that me growing up was kind of coincidental and coincided with, I'm going to say, Limerick growing up. So I'm 44, so like I saw the growth happen, and then I sort of know where you are now, and sort of the impression is that we want to try and, I don't want to say mitigate, growth is good, but we want to manage what we have. And so I feel like it sort of coincides with my age.
I guess the last quick point to say is that this is the team. We're going to bring other folks in who are GIS specialists and other specialists in planning, but this is the team. There's no bait and switch. This is the group you're going to get.
So just generally RVE's core capacities, obviously we're talking about comprehensive planning, so that is indicated there. Then there's land use planning and analysis, which is your broader spectrum of municipal tools. I've served on both in the private consulting world and as actual municipal employees, so I know both sides of the equation. Public outreach and engagement, obviously as planners we do public outreach and engagement. We at RVE also have a public engagement team that we can utilize. Ordinance review and updates, again, both sides of the coin, both consulting and municipal, working through ordinance revisions, something that you clearly have to know, which is step 2 after a comprehensive plan. Demographic analysis is just the utilization of census data, other data, DVRPC, county data sets. And I do talk about it later, but I'll even throw in GIS. A lot of times there are GIS data sets in there. Open space and recreation planning is a subset of a comprehensive plan a lot of times as an element, and we have produced those standalone documents as well. And then sustainability and resiliency planning. Obviously, in 2026, we talk about climate change, we talk about all these key things, and every municipality is trying to reduce hazards, emergency management, things of such. And then lastly, already touched upon, but GIS mapping and spatial analysis. The planning team does have the skill set, but then also we do have expert GIS professionals in case that is needed to go deeper than our skills allow. Next slide. So our core approach, next slide, we'll go into our approach. So again, I sort of touched upon it, but I think a lot of this is the 2009 comprehensive plan, was sort of adopted and put in place to help guide the growth. And now I think we're beyond that, and we need to sort of manage, and how do we do that? And so we want to take everything we've learned from the past, all of the issues that we now see, all the things affecting Limerick, and then come up with strategies for, yes, allowing growth to happen, but allowing it to organize in a fashionable way. So we sort of say refining what exists, right? We were a community, or you were a community that, you know, had 5,000 people when I was a kid, and now you have 20,000 people. And so we have to reinvent what that is and what it looks like. And then unified plans is, again, there's all these various documents out there done at different times that are almost like scattershot, and we need to bring them all together and create one document that guides and gives that vision for the future. Next slide. So there's 4 core focus areas that we talk about, but focus area 1 is land use balance and fiscal strategy. So first, we want to look at the zoning map, and we want to analyze that, and we want to say, hey, like, what is working? Are there places that we know we need to change? Are there zones that we don't like the standards? And how do they fit into the developed pattern that has been built and exists? Then in that, we need to address various concerns. We believe data centers might be a concern. Then there's obviously fiscal strategy and fiscal responsibility. Everyone needs ratables to help reduce tax burden on residents. Then, of course, when you have a municipality that grew really quickly, your last pieces of land are valuable, and so how do you preserve them? What do you do with them? How do you utilize them? How do you give active or passive park space to residents, et cetera? And then, of course, with growth comes traffic, so how do you mitigate that? So these are just some broad ideas that we are thinking about as we proposed on this RFP. Out of that, the question becomes, how do we balance remaining development potential with conservation goals to ensure long-term financial stability and community character? Next slide. Ordinance consistency and sustainable development. So again, I sort of talked about it. We want to bridge that gap. So we might have a policy, maybe that policy was put in place pre-growth or during growth, and now we're saying, does it work? So we want to bridge the policy to come up with a strategy to solve the issue that we anticipated when we put into the policy, right? So we have a policy, and now is it effective? Let's change it. Let's advocate for what it is our new goals are. And then sustainability frameworks. I think sustainability is obviously very important and something I'm sure we'll talk about much deeper. I think the key with sustainability is understanding what is meant by the word. And so sustainability could be implementing building techniques. Sustainability could be stormwater management. Sustainability could be reducing gasoline consumption. There's a whole broad range of what sustainability can mean. I think it's important to hone in on that, make sure we know what it is, and then also in that connection is when we're putting in place a policy, we want to make sure that that policy helps to achieve our goals versus maybe possibly creating a burden that might hinder whatever our goal is. Sometimes there's costs derived with sustainability, and we just need to think about it holistically and say what will get us to where we want to be. And then enforceable framework, we just want to make sure our goals, objectives, our ordinances are clear, there's no gray areas. Again, that is kind of ordinances, which happens post-comprehensive plan, but is recommendations and goals that are 100% in the comprehensive plan. So out of that, we have a central question, is how can Limerick land use ordinances be updated to encourage sustainable building practices and balance emerging technologies and neighborhood protection? Next slide, core value 3, housing diversity and demographic shifts. Clearly when you're, I'm gonna say, when I was a kid, a more agrarian township, and now you're more suburban, there's gonna be changes in housing types, what that means, infrastructure, and so as a community gets built out, even the types of housing changes over time. And so we wanna make sure through looking at census, obviously through input from the steering committee and through the supervisors, you guys obviously are the boots on the ground and will know what is needed, but let's confirm that with data and let's make sure we're making an informed decision, not just a reactionary decision. So we would need to draft policies that inform our decisions, and then we want to provide for a diverse types of housing. And then lastly, again, it's sort of that growth with houses become people who need services, and then what services are we going to provide? where should they go? So with that, the question becomes that we pose is how can Limerick proactively plan housing opportunities to support changing demographics while matching public services, schools, park capacity? Next slide, core focus 3, corridor management and resilience infrastructure. So obviously Limerick has some major corridors, Route 422, Ridge Pike, Swamp Pike, Lewis Road. These are your areas of congestion also. So the question is, how do you, they're there, they're built, right-of-ways are established, what methods can we put in place to try and, signalization, timing, widening roads, creating better turning lanes, how can we put infrastructure in place to better serve the community that is now built? With that, there's various plans that the municipality already has. There's the 2021 roadway sufficiency analysis. Every municipality has a transportation capital improvement plan. And then of course there's Act 209. We should look at those and analyze those and combine. And again, it's sort of back to that holistic approach in that, yes, they exist, they're standalone documents, but how do we synthesize and bring everything together to have one vision? And then of course there's Heritage Field, which has been slated for expansion, and what might that do to the future, and how do we address that? So how do we dynamically, the question then would be, how do we dynamically coordinate future growth with roadway capacity and utility networks to prevent traffic congestion and support sustainable infrastructure? And I think in their key, I talked about, we'll say an airport, I talked about traffic, but utilities is equally just important. Where do those utilities go? Where do we expand? Things like that. So then scope of services. Next slide. So this is just a brief scope of services as we proposed in the RFP. So phase 1, I'm just going to touch on quickly, is really, it's sort of the precursor. It's just saying, we understand the MPC, we know 45-day guidelines, and we're going to be there supporting you through the entire process. But then phase 2 is actually getting boots onto the ground. So you have data analysis, data collection. These comes from various sources as indicated there. Obviously, comprehensive community engagement is going to be vital in any comprehensive plan. I'm going to just say that and skip to the next slide. And we do have a whole slide on community engagement, so I don't need to dig deep into that. So community engagement, out of that community engagement, you then establish goals, recommendations, and that community engagement is, yes, both the public, but it's also your steering committee, it's you all, it's the governing body, it's staff, it's everyone. And then implementation, so you have your goals and then implementing. We feel it's very important, a lot of comprehensive plans, they sort of just state facts and they don't really give guidance on what to do. They just sort of say, here's 100 million issues, go forth, right? We feel it's better to do, this is like a newer strategy. At this point, it's not so new, but a newer strategy in comprehensive plans. It's an implementable plan. And you sort of, as opposed to doing a really, really broad stroke, you lay the groundwork with a broad stroke, but then you hone in on specific tasks. And then you analyze those specific tasks so that, again, a comprehensive plan is designed to be 10 years. Got confused with the time, 10 years. And, so really in 10 years, we could reanalyze this and say, okay, we did those 10 goals, let's pick another 10, as opposed to having 800 where no one can do anything. And then lastly, obviously, adoption and deliverables. So back to public outreach. So our comprehensive outreach strategy will include 10 working sessions with the steering committee, charrettes and open houses, a digital survey, which we can also then print and give people directions on mailing in, but we will not be mailing it to every house, but a digital survey. There's some pop-up, there's ideas for approaching pop-up events. There's 3 that we identified. And actually, I think you identified them in the RFP. And then lastly, engaging personnel, stakeholders, school board, fire department, business community, etc. Next slide. So this is just a quick project schedule. I'm not going to go through it all, but we're proposing a 15-month timeline that includes from project launch to project completion. That does include meetings and such. The details are there. I don't think I need to spell them all out. Next slide. So I'm going to end with this. This is why RVE. I'm gonna just leave it up there and then open the floor to you and we can talk about anything we need to talk about. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. We'll start, Ms. Schuler, any questions? Ms. Irwin?
None, thank you.
Yeah, thanks.
Dr. Walraven?
What are the three most significant planning challenges and opportunities?
I'm sorry, I can't hear you down here, so just a little louder. Thank you.
We all have the problem with the mic, or at least I do.
No
with
worries.
you. What are the three most significant planning challenges and opportunities within Limerick?
So, in my opinion, I think it's going to be development traffic, I'm going to say, traffic and development. And then in line with that is going to also be ordinance revisions and where we locate things that we want or mitigate things that maybe we don't want. So those are the first two. And then I think with every place, I personally feel that housing is a big need. And there's always the issue of wanting a specific housing type and then demand maybe indicating a different housing type. And so I like to think of it like this, like maybe we want young professionals, right? And we want young professionals who will come and buy things and utilize our stores. And then 10 years, 15 years later, those young professionals now have kids. And now we have the problem of kids, which is maybe something we didn't want. So we have to sort of think through this strategy and provide opportunities for people to switch housing types and provide for all the different housing types. So I would say housing, congestion, and then obviously right sizing of zoning.
Great. Mr. Maroney?
Tell us about a comprehensive plan completed for a municipality most like Limerick, and what measurable outcomes resulted from the plan.
Sure. So I will probably select the one we did for Middletown Township, which is up in Bucks County. And in that, the way we approached it is we had, oh God, hopefully I'm right. We had 5 main sections, and those sections were land use, transportation, I'm just gonna say natural resources, utilities, and what was the last? Great question. Don't know. Let's pretend there's 4 and I'll talk about those 4. So the way it worked in that municipality was, again, we sort of went this implementable, actionable route. And through conversations, we came up with about two actionable items for every specific issue. So in transportation, for example, there was a major intersection. They said, we can't figure out what we need to do with this intersection. So we analyzed the intersection, we had community meetings with this intersection, and then we proposed multiple ideas, i.e. one could be building a bridge over the intersection, which is obviously gonna have a huge cost component. Then there's restriping the lanes, which might have a less cost component, but would immediately impact, might create congestion problems for 2 years, et cetera, right? And so what we did was the end result of those analysis was step-by-step actionable items like A, identify the issue, B, once we identify the issue, what is the funding source? And we would throw out all of the possibilities. So we would then research funding sources and say, if we're going this route, you could apply for these funds. If you're going this route, you could apply for these funds. And it really just, the goal was to give a playbook, basically. So I think that's really, I did talk about traffic. We also analyzed land uses. In Middletown Township, they had a big problem with, again, housing. And so we talked about making suggestions on zoning ordinances to allow for smaller lots, to allow for then smaller houses, to then allow, yes, of course, the bad word is it might allow for more density, but if we want smaller houses and we want more compact development, can we add density? Can we cluster development to require then green space within these amenities? And so again, ordinances, drafts, documents, review. That was sort of what I think the implementable plan is, and that's what I think is the best outcome of any master plan.
And that plan was also very successful, and I think the key to success was the fact that we put together a really good task force. There were folks in the towns that they weren't being heard, so what we said was, well, come on in. We're not afraid of a large task force for the meetings we're gonna We had 20 people, if I remember
Yeah,
correctly.
it was a big one.
And the township was very well represented, lots of different folks from different parts of the township, different professions, and different interests in the township. And the fact that we brought them all in, and we got to hear their input, and they were a part of the plan, really made a very successful plan, and one that was easy to get adopted once it was time to get it adopted by the supervisors.
Yeah, and I mean, it's a kind of silly task, but a task that I always like to do to start comprehensive plans is just a simple SWOT analysis, which is like strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, threats. And it's a good way to just get people into a room and say, like, what's the positives? What are we starting with? What's not working? And it just gets those brains flowing.
And then I have a question as well. And how do you ensure a final comprehensive plan reflects the priorities of the Limerick residents rather than staff, consultants, or the Board of Supervisors?
Yeah, so I mean, clearly you need to have robust outreach, and you need to listen in that outreach. I think every comprehensive plan needs, I'll just say, at least a 2-stage, and that 2-stage is like, here's the data, here's what we found, here's what we're presenting back to you. People respond to that, and then we have to then synthesize those responses, and then we have to come back and say, hey, this is what we heard, and yes, there's going to be situations where I didn't hear it correctly, and then we're going to have to edit. But without having that, like, you tell me what you need, and then me give you what I hear, without that, I don't think you're ever going to be successful.
I think it also lends us up to the task force that I also just
Yeah,
described.
yeah.
That group is very, very important. Because they're a representation of everyone here. They're a representation of the township.
I actually have a follow-up
Sure.
question. Once you get through your comp plan and everything, let's say you decide that you want a certain type of businesses to come in. Do you offer like a marketing strategy or anything to the township to be able to attract those type of businesses? Or, once we identify what we're looking for, what that mix, do you offer like a marketing strategy or anything like that?
So I guess the question would be, as part of the comprehensive plan, or just in general as a service?
As part of the comprehensive plan, thank you for clarifying.
So generally speaking, I would say the economic analysis in a comprehensive plan is with a planner's lens versus with a true financial analysis, looking at leasable spaces, analyzing leasable spaces. That is reserved for a market expert, which is not on our team. That said, you do always look at it from a planner's perspective. So like, we do know, generally speaking, what is a leasable space. We could draft ordinances that then would comply with market trends, but we wouldn't necessarily know, other than conversation and data behind it, census data, what might the leasability of that be. I can give a great example. Actually, I'm in conversations with a municipality right now where we're trying to figure out, we drafted an ordinance, so quite similar. We drafted an ordinance, and we, the municipality, thinks that there's a market for commercial space. And we're being sued by a developer who is saying, no, you can't build it. So we're literally going through that process of trying to figure out, and ultimately the end result would be expert A and expert B and a decision, and we're not there. But again, we drafted it based on our impression. The market is going to tell you otherwise.
I think the stakeholder group is definitely going to include key members from the business community, and that's going to be invaluable input that's kind of shaping this planner's lens as they're looking at Limerick.
And then it can be, of course, there's always an add-on and a cost with any economic analysis. So if that were to be considered in the future, we can definitely talk and figure out pricing for add-ons or grants or whatever, right?
And part of the reason I asked that question is because a lot of times out in the community, based on certain things that we've decided on or approved, we'll get the feedback of, why do we have to get another fast food restaurant? I'm tired of chains. I'd like to see more originality in some of the businesses. And so that's part of why I'm asking that question, to be able to figure out not only once, we identify the mix, the different rateables, the different types of businesses, how do we actually go about like getting those ones that we want in here? So.
Yeah, I mean, I would just add that I think the hardest part with that is you put in place a zone, and we've all experienced this, right? We put in place a zone, and then I'll just be extreme and say, and then the first application that comes in is maybe the bottom of our list of what we wanted for that zone, right? And so at that point, it is permitted, market forces drive it, and so I don't want to say we swallow the pill. We can reanalyze the zone. We can say, okay, that just happened. Where did we miss our target? Are there design standards that we want to like consider to try and, yes, it might be this use, but what does that use look like? How does it feel to the people in the community? Like, how can we advance that to be more what we're looking for? Well, maybe compromising, but yeah, it is a give and take.
And admittedly, what I just gave you as an example is just a small like sliver of it. I'm sure it's not nearly like comprehensive. It's just an example of what I'm here.
Yeah.
When you're implementing the plan, there's other things you can do. You can look at architectural standards. There's
Design
lots of different things you
standards.
can do. That doesn't preclude the business from happening, but it may give you a little different mix than what you're getting now.
Thanks.
Sure.
All right, we have 1:46. Does anyone have an additional or follow-up question?
You would have done the last slide if I never have 1:30 at the end. Wow.
You can do your last slide.
You want my note?
Be happy to.
Okay.
So make sure I get this zoned in here. So we bring an authentic local perspective. Ashton and I spoke a little bit about our familiarity with the area. I think that that's a key part. We take that to heart. Like Remington Vernick has always worked with local communities. We have great expertise, and we care and live right here. Unmatched regional experience beyond just our King of Prussia office. I'm stepping up. Beyond just our King of Prussia office, we're backed by another dozen offices in the immediate area and then across the country with great professionals to back us up. We're multidisciplinary. We're also very used to working in multidisciplinary. We're not simply a planning firm. We are a planning firm that is used to working as multidisciplinary professionals. So Ashton is used to working alongside our transportation professionals, our environmental professionals, working in tandem. So we think that's an advantage as opposed to maybe a firm that isn't used to working in a multidisciplinary fashion. We have an advanced toolkit. I mentioned our GIS department. It's really a powerful tool, and it's an important one that forms the groundwork for the policies decisions you'll make. We mentioned the national scope of our firm at this point, our expertise, and then also our local attention to detail. I think that's it. Thank you so much.
Thank you for joining us tonight. Thank you for sharing your
Thanks
plan.
for
Thank
the
you.
time. Really appreciate it. Thanks so much.
Welcome. We're happy to have you here. If you want to go ahead and get started. Thank you very much.
All right. Well, hello. We're at HRG, and we're here to talk to you, obviously, about the comprehensive plan update, the proposal that we submitted. I was hitting the wrong arrow. There we go. All right. So I'm Caitlin Mills. I'm a project manager with HRG. I'm a certified planner and certified park and rec professional. I've been with them about 7 years and collaborate often with Dean, as we are the two sort of PMs on this side of the state, so we often collaborate with each other, and I'll let him introduce himself.
Okay, hi, I'm Dean Severson. I'm also a certified planner. I'm working with the HRG office out of York, and as Caitlin mentioned, we're kind of the co-project managers for this. I've had about 3 years of experience at HRG. Before that, I had approximately 35 years of experience in the public sector in Lancaster County, Lehigh Valley, and some other places. So primarily my experience has been in the public sector side.
And I'm based out of King of Prussia, just so we have that. So just a quick overview of just who HRG is. We're a engineering and multidisciplinary firm, so we have related services, which includes planning. We also have capital solutions team, which helps a lot with our implementation strategy that'll be included in this comprehensive plan. But we also have all of the different forms of engineering, which is really helpful when we're looking to gain feedback on what sort of works in other communities too. We can sort of ping our municipal engineers across the state to sort of see what is out there. So that's just a plug on who we are. Really, it just means that we have a bunch of people behind us too. And moving on to project scope and timeline, I'm going to hand it off to Dean.
Okay, thanks. To give you go over the different phases that we have in the project scope. The first part, I guess the thing before I start is, the thing to emphasize in all of these phases is what we like to have is the flexibility. We've given you the proposal of what we'd like to do, but in all cases, we want to make sure that we tailor this to what you want. So there is no set in stone process for us to do. It's pretty much guided by what you folks generally need. The first stage is what we always want to do is kind of a, let's try to figure out who our client is. Let's try to figure out what their needs are, talk with the folks in the community. We have the trends report and past plans report. We want to take a look and see what you've done. In the past, we know that there's been a lot of planning efforts in the township, so we want to make sure that we incorporate those planning efforts into our work. The next part of it is the project kickoff and the public participation, which may be among the most important parts of the project. And I'll kind of skip past that for right now because Caitlin will be touching on that in the next slide. The next part, the next phase is basically putting the plan together. And that includes meeting with the steering committee. You'll notice that we did want to address the items that are in your proposal in terms of the NPC requirements. But the important thing that we want to stress is, again, it's not just checkbox, making sure we have each of the items in the NPC addressed. We want to make sure that we identify themes throughout the plan and see how these different chapters interrelate, and looking at the goals and objectives and making sure that we look and see how those interrelationships are, because that helps us when we get to the end of the phase and taking a look at how do we actually implement this plan. So we want to make sure that we don't want to box ourselves off or put ourselves in silos, but we want to make sure that as we go through this, we have particular themes that we can address. And then the final part of this phase, which is months 14 through 17, is the actual finalizing it, getting additional comments from the public, putting together reviews by the planning commission, supervisors, making revisions to the plan. The important part of this one is making sure that we have implementation measures in place. And it's one of the things that we emphasize in all of our plans, that we make sure that we have all recommendations which are implementable, they're fitting within your budget, they're fitting within your time frame, and they address the needs that you have. And we want to make sure with our staff that Caitlin mentioned, we have a very strong group that we have that works with municipalities in terms of trying to find capital solutions to make sure that you have funding opportunities in place so that you can fully implement these plans. We have a whole section of our department which is working with municipal funding opportunities for our municipal clients. So I'll dive into, I guess the next part is public engagement. Caitlin can handle that.
All right, so public engagement is one of the biggest parts of sort of any planning process. You really want to hear from the community what they need and what they, are looking for. We also want to hear what has happened in the past and maybe how that's worked or how that's been beneficial and maybe the direction that you would like to head in. So for the public engagement, we sort of outlined what you guys had within your RFP. So we want to do steering committee meetings, focus groups, a community survey, an open house, a pop-up, and then we also present the plan at the end. This process is very, we have it outlined, but in the beginning of the plan, we really want to develop a strategy that is going to work for you. So, what's the best way to reach your community? Is it the pop-ups? Then maybe we need to consider adjusting and maybe having different ones. Maybe there's a big community event coming up. I know you guys are celebrating your 300th, and I saw that on your website. So, that's a great opportunity to either promote the survey. So how can we line things up to get the survey promoted during that? Or how can we get out there in front of them at that event or a different event within the community? So sort of hearing from you guys too, what works to get the word out is very important to us because every community is different. Some have text blasts, some have email blasts, some have a great, park and rec board that has a huge email list, and that's awesome, but that's not the case in every community. And then throughout the process, we'll be continuing to check in and say, okay, how do we need to adjust this? So, is this steering committee working? Do we need to bring someone else into the fold? Do we need to cut back the number of meetings? Maybe homework in between is better to get them engaged and thinking before. So throughout the process, like I said, it's gonna be very, adjusting to meet the needs of your community and get the most feedback. Because the biggest thing is we don't want to have a meeting just to have a meeting and check a box. We really want to get that feedback and have engagement throughout the process. So I guess that's sort of covered a lot of my next slide, but we're going to right size that engagement for you. We're going to make sure that it's adaptable. Doing pop-ups, maybe we need to do a day meeting and a night meeting to be able to capture more people. Maybe it's a night meeting with an online option for people to participate at home after the fact. And essentially just meeting the community where they are. Is it going to be in person? Is it going to be virtual? Is it going to be both? Is it going to be hybrid? And understanding what platforms you have used that have been successful will also help us along the way.
Okay, so our last slide that we have is talking about updates that matter. Again, this is something that we want to do. We don't want to, again, just be a situation where, okay, it's been a while since you've done the last comprehensive plan, I guess it's time to do another one. It's more of purpose-driven. What is it that you need to have? What purpose will this comprehensive plan update do? We do want to recognize, again, as I mentioned, you've done quite a bit of place-based planning recently. We noticed that there's quite a few trail plans. You have a neighborhood plan coming up. So there's a number of things that we want to do to incorporate those. And again, looking at the different aspects of each of those plans and see how they fit into the different segments of the comprehensive plan. We don't want to pigeonhole any of those. So again, we want to integrate those documents rather than override them. We also want to make sure that, again, as we look at the different chapters and different sections of the comprehensive plan, that we differentiate the strategies by area rather than applying one set of policies township-wide. We know that working with townships in particular, there's a range of suburban, urban, in some cases even rural settings, which all demand different approaches in land use, housing, transportation. They all need different approaches and they all need different solutions. There is no one set. So we want to make sure, we want to recognize those areas which make the most sense for your township, whether they're specific villages, specific areas, corridor studies, whatever they may be, we have to find out what those areas are, and we have to tailor our planning towards those areas. So that's something that we want to make sure that we do. And again, the third point that we have is this comprehensive plan is as much about stewardship and connectivity as it is about planning for growth in the future. Oftentimes you see municipalities, they're saying, well, where are we going to put future growth? What are we going to do? We also want to recognize that you have a community that's been here, as Caitlin mentioned, 300 years. You have to recognize the history, how you got to this point in time. You have to have that in place to consider where you go forward. You have to know your past before you know your future. So it's something that we want to make sure that we consider all those things, figure out your land use pattern, figure out how all things have developed within your municipality so we can tailor those recommendations based on where you're at today. And again, something we've stressed is we want to make sure that this plan is action-oriented, fiscally informed, and aligned with your zoning and capital planning. In addition to the recommendations that we're going to be making in terms of funding recommendations or specific programs, we are going to be providing recommendations to update your zoning ordinance. whenever we're looking at the existing and future land use plan sections of the comprehensive plan, that's going to be part of it, is how are we going to implement those things through the zoning ordinance? And we'll also provide some recommendations as well to implement that in other ordinances, in terms of, you also have your subdivision and land development ordinance, you have your capital improvements planning. You have a variety of planning documents that you want to put in place to make sure that we can implement the plan. So we have to be cognizant of that as we move forward with our recommendations. So at that point, I guess we'll open up and see if you have any questions for us.
Great, thank you. Ms. Schuler, do you have any questions? Ms. Irwin?
Yes, so we've talked about the positives, and I'd like to know a project that maybe didn't go so well, if you could talk about your experience with that and how you maybe brought it around.
I think in particular there was a comprehensive plan that we worked on in Dauphin County. I worked for a township. And I was the project manager on that one, and Caitlin helped out as well. We had a specific direction that we were going with the township. They had a planning manager, or they had a township manager and a zoning officer in place. Probably halfway or 3/4 of the way into the project, both the manager and the zoning officer left. And there was kind of a 180 turn to meet the needs of the new manager, who wanted to take the plan in an entirely different direction. It took a little bit of scrambling on our part, but I think we were able to identify what the manager in the township's new directions, new priorities were. And the best we could, we didn't want to recreate the plan, but we tried to make sure that our objectives and our goals met what they were looking for. So I think that was a bit of a challenge for us, but I think we were able to do it.
Thank you.
Great, thank you. Dr. Walraven?
What are the three most significant challenges and opportunities you see for us in Limerick?
Well, there's growth happening, so I think that's one of sort of your biggest opportunities, while also one of your challenges, because you have to be able to manage that. You don't want to grow too big in the wrong areas and change your whole community as a whole. So it's sort of identifying those areas where growth is strategic and where it makes sense, and making sure that it is appropriate for the rest of the land use in the township, because you are sort of in that, you were more rural and now you're turning more suburban, so how do you sort of marry that and mesh that, especially with the people who may think that you're more rural and want to stay that way, and others that would like to be more urbanized. So I think that's one. I'll pass it over.
Sure. I think we see this in working with all sorts of communities, is that trying to identify the needs of all the residents, and it's probably most showing something like transportation options, moving beyond just, we need to have road improvements. What are the things that you need to do in terms of meeting the transportation needs of everybody in the township, whether it's on-road, off-road, trail, bike, ped, whatever the needs are. I think that's one of the challenges that we see. I think another one is identifying, I think one of the biggest issues that we have in every municipality that we work with is, and more broadly, is how do we make sure that we find the voices of everybody within the municipality? It's been a challenge for us as planners, and it's been a challenge working with all municipalities to get everybody's response and everybody's input into the plan. And it's been difficult, and that's why it goes back to the public input section. We don't want to just have checkbox, public participation, have an open house. Most of these things don't work, so we have to come up with new solutions that are tailored to your community so that we can get everybody's input.
Thank you.
Mr. Maroney?
Tell us about a comprehensive plan completed for municipalities similar to Limerick. And what measurable outcomes came out of that?
Okay. Trying to think. Right now, I think I'm working, well, I finished a plan in York County. It's for a suburban township. It's kind of partway between Harrisburg and York. It's kind of a bedroom community, but it was, it has a real rural component to it. So they are making their transition from a rural area into more of a suburban community and the demands of that places. And also I think we have a lot of transportation corridors going through that township. So there's, in addition to trying to preserve their rural lifestyle, is also trying to identify and deal with all the challenges that come with transportation related land uses. All the things like warehousing, data centers, all those types of things. And also trying to look at redevelopment for the businesses along those corridors and trying to make sure that they have new development which respects what they have in the township. I think we've done pretty well with that because they've been able to maintain. As a matter of fact, I'm working on the follow-up to that plan right now. We're working on the zoning ordinance to implement the changes within that plan. So we are kind of trying to do both sides, trying to make sure that we preserve that rural suburban feel for the municipality while also acknowledging that we have real urban level demands in terms of new development that's going to occur within the township. So it's been a challenge, but I think we've been able to do it pretty well with that township.
Great, and then I have a question. How do you ensure the final comprehensive plan reflects the priorities of the Limerick residents rather than the staff, consultants, or the Board of Supervisors?
I think that, again, that's one of the biggest challenges that we have is making sure that we have the community come out and give us that. What we try to have check-ins, if you will, all along the way. We don't want to just have public input in the very beginning and say, okay, what do you think? And then that's the end of it. We try to have at least a midway point and say, okay, we've come up with these themes that we've identified that kind of cross through all the different sections of the ordinance. Do these kind of reflect what you think? So again, that's a checkpoint right there. Then as we move forward towards the implementation and we start coming up with the specific implementation measures, we have another check-in at that point. And we've had a variety of prioritization exercises, voting, and we've used like transportation bucks for people, different ways to get folks to say, we've come up with these recommendations, and also this is what it's going to cost you, and this is how long it's going to take. What do you think? Do you have any, you're going to change your mind of anything that might be higher or lower priority? So again, the other thing to do is to make sure that the implementation measures aren't just pie in the sky recommendations like we need to preserve farmland. We need to be able to provide real recommendations for residents to say, okay, this is what that means, this is what that costs, and this is how long it's going to take. What do you think? So I think that's kind of what we want to do, is making sure that they're fully informed of what those recommendations are.
And I think the other thing is just making sure that it's not just in the beginning and at the end. I think a lot of the time, you know, the community gets engaged in the visioning aspect and then sort of it feels like they go away and then they come back at the end when the draft plan is issued, and that's not the approach that we want to take. Like Dean said, we really want to make sure that they're, you know, seeing what we're recommending and allowing the time to pivot. Even though the draft plan, you know, you can take the comments and you can change things, it feels more final to the community when they see it in that format. So making sure that you come to them with, here's what we're thinking. Did we hear what you said, right? And, you know, there's still time to adjust. You know, nothing's set in stone at this point. You don't even have a full document to look at. So, you know, is this what is right? So I think that's the biggest thing, and just making sure that we work with you on that community engagement strategy in the beginning and then throughout the process to make sure, okay, this is what we heard from this group. Do we need to pivot? Do we need to do something else? Is there someone else that we need to bring on board? It's just really making sure that it's a collaborative process with you.
Caitlin,
yes.
What innovative way will you do what you just said you're going to do? Social media, you're young. I'd like to hear what you would recommend that you can utilize with all these tools we have around us?
I think one of the most engaging ways to make sure that the community is involved is if you're having something done in the public, to make sure that there is an online component that people can do from home. Not everyone's in the same place, not at the same time. So I have specifically done a public meeting where I've hosted 2 virtual, hybrid format presentations at a building in the morning and the afternoon, or early evening time. Both were held online so they could watch the presentation, and then we went into 4 breakout rooms and then had those same activities able to be done online and were left open for 2 weeks after the public meeting. We also recorded the public meeting then, so it was online. Anyone could view it at their leisure and also complete the public engagement. We had people, log on virtually in the morning, and then they came in the afternoon. They said, I thought I could just do it here online, but I decided, I want to come here and I want to provide my feedback in person. And then we also had people who, instead of having to, send an email to, us, and might be scary to do or weird, they felt comfortable filling out that online format. We had an additional 180 people respond to that. And I think we had 40 people come in the morning and 40 people in the afternoon, not including those that attended virtually. So I think that doubled both of the attendances. So if you think about that, that's, there might be some overlap there with, people who came to the morning and then provided comments, but that's a better way to sort of reach the community. So it's really, and what tools, and learning what tools work for you. Are you using SurveyMonkey? Do we maybe need to look for a new platform so it looks different? So that way people are more engaged with it. That's something I've heard recently is everybody uses SurveyMonkey right now, so everything's a SurveyMonkey form, and they don't remember that it's a different form. So, or is it we need to use our GIS survey platform that you can actually identify specific areas? Maybe there is a question that's location-based, and that's what we use. So it's that, and then we also provide a share kit, which has a QR code, a draft flyer for you to send that's in different formats. You get a full page, a half page, a quarter page, so that way you can print it at various sizes and share it. We also provide you with sample social media posts, so that way it can get posted online. And we also provide a guide that provides suggestions on other ways to share it. Do you have a mailer that goes out, quarterly? Can we try and tag on to that? Or do you have a newsletter that we can post onto? When does that go out? So we can time everything up right. So it's really about using your tools to you guys know what works for you, but then also how can we enhance that and give you, everything when it lines up? Because I think sometimes there's those missed opportunities when we don't know what's going on, and then it's shoot, we could have done it then, and now we're kind of playing catch up, or you're trying to create a survey in a week to launch it. So I think it's really collaborative and utilizing online and in person as much as you can.
Great, and we still have 5 minutes. Is there any other questions from any board member? No? I think that's it. I do have one though, because now I'm curious. On your steering committee, what is a good number that you would like to see on a steering committee?
I think it's more about who's going to be engaged. I think that's the biggest thing. I mean, you don't want it too small, so you don't want to only have a handful of people, but you also want to make sure that if you're bringing people to the table, they're going to be providing their feedback and their opinion. I'd say a good number is 10. You're hoping that most of them can show out for that. Hopefully you can get, if you notice numbers are dwindling, maybe you need to reach out to some other folks that can be engaged, but I think it's really about the engagement. So if you can find 10 people who are going to show up, provide their input, if they're unable to attend, they're actually going to do homework and provide their feedback that way, I think that's, that 10, 12.
Yeah, probably about that.
Yeah.
And I think identifying, and again, this is working with the township, but who's a good interview and who's a good member for the steering committee is an important part of it too, because as Kayla mentioned, I've only got 2 hours, 3 hours to give you, and that's all I can do. But your input's very important, so we got to make sure that we get you. So that's the kind of thing that we need to find as well. Both of those participants are equally important.
Great, that was my final. So I appreciate it. Thank you guys very much for coming out.
Thank you.
Thank you for having us.
Thank you.
I'm going to turn the floor over to you.
Okay.
So thank you very much.
Thank you. Hi, everybody. I am John Trant, President and CEO of Strategic Solutions. Happy to be here with you tonight in Limerick Township. Amanda's online. As I mentioned earlier, Greg Garth is identified as project manager alongside me with this project, but he is somewhere sunny this week. So we've got a deep bench, and Amanda is here so that we can have somebody else on our team to give you some additional insight. Amanda?
Sorry, to T.
Amanda, you want to introduce yourself?
Oh, okay. Are we just, do you want to start with introductions,
Yes.
John?
Yeah, we started. Yep. Can you hear us okay?
Yes.
Yep.
Sorry, I can't really hear you, John, but I
Oh.
can hear.
I did get corrected already about the microphone. Can you hear me now?
Oh, yes, I can hear you.
Got it. Okay. Please introduce yourself, Amanda.
Oh, okay, sorry. Hi, I'm Amanda Krikovich. I've been working with Strategic Solutions for over a year now. I am a community planner too, and just really happy to be here. I'm actually Ohio-based, and have lots of PA experience. I went to college in Pennsylvania, and I've worked for Pennsylvania townships in the public sector, and now I am working for Strategic Solutions and doing comp plan updates, zoning ordinance updates, and all the fun things.
I also failed to mention that I handed out a folder at the beginning. There are hard copies of the slides. There's a hard copy of the proposal that we had submitted if you don't have that in front of you. And then there's also some additional information about our firm. As I mentioned, I'm John Trant, President and CEO. I've been working in Pennsylvania planning, zoning, economic development, implementation of comprehensive plans for the last 27 years. I've worked with lots of second-class townships throughout the Commonwealth and have a broad base of experience in both planning and management. And I'll advance to the team members. I also mentioned earlier we've got a deep bench. We are primarily all planners. We're not a smaller piece of a larger animal in terms of a couple of planners in an engineering firm. We focus on planning, we focus on management, we do comprehensive plans, we implement comprehensive plans. We also draft ordinances, zoning and subdivision land development ordinances. We serve as zoning officers and zoning experts, so we have a full breadth of planning and implementation across the Commonwealth. The additional team members we have listed here, there's also information about them in the proposal. All of us would be contributing in some way, shape, or form to the project. Again, it's an all hands on deck approach when we work with you. If we're able to work with you on this project, we all contribute, tapping into everybody's individual strengths to bring to your project and best practices from other places where we've worked. It's not advancing anymore.
Tim?
Oh, it's up in the.
Is this because the box?
Because we put into that box. I think click back on the presentation.
We won't penalize you.
Go ahead, Nelson.
Okay. So a couple of reasons why our team. As I mentioned, we have worked with communities similar to yours. We've got 7 planners, including 3 of whom are AICP. We've got a broad range of planning experience and backgrounds. Jason on our team is an architect and a technical writer who brings some of that experience to our planning efforts. Lindsay focuses a lot on housing issues, and Amanda has a historic preservation background. Myself, I've got pretty much across the board in terms of economic development and all planning implementation efforts, both as a planner as well as a municipal management professional. We've got that real experience with implementing. A lot of times plans are drafted without really understanding how it's going to get done. So we're going to listen a lot to understand Limerick so we can then craft recommendations that are not only responsive to what the community wants, but also realistic and specific so that they will be able to be implemented with the staff and the resources that you all have here at the township. We've got that local government knowledge, working with cities, townships, boroughs, all shapes and sizes across the Commonwealth, including lots of second-class townships. And we also know how to engage, and we do so very specifically with a purpose of understanding exactly what the key issues are so we can bring those issues back to the township and fold them into the comprehensive plan and recommendations. Our approach, one of our informal taglines is planning is great, doing is better. I've already said it several times, but we focus on implementation a lot. There's no point in planning if nobody's going to do anything with it. We can see that you folks have a lot of great planning efforts on your website, and we can also see that you've done a lot of implementing, which is great. So you've got momentum, you've got past practice, whether it's park planning or transportation impact fees, you know how to plan and do, and that is our specialty. We've got some projects listed here, and also in the proposal, there are some examples that are specifically fleshed out a little bit more. Again, we've worked in townships, we work with PSATs, the State Association of Township Supervisors, to do training on planning and zoning all across the Commonwealth. So we certainly don't know Limerick Township yet, but we certainly know and have lots of experience with townships like you across the Commonwealth. With that, I'm going to turn it over to Amanda, and she's going to give you some highlights about our scope of work.
Hello, everybody. I'm just going to briefly talk about our scope. Everybody received, or we did submit our proposal, which lays out our scope in more detail, but just wanted to give a brief overview of it. So our project timeline, we are proposing 18 months through 4 different phases. Phase 1 is definitely about laying the foundation. This is where we're going to do our kickoff meeting. We're definitely going to go over some of your existing plans. Definitely those master plans that we've already started looking at on your website. So your 2009 comp plan will be a big one. Your open space plan, your greenways and trails plan, all of those we're definitely going to be looking at just to make sure that this new comprehensive plan aligns with those adopted master plans. Phase 2 is going to be all about working sessions. So we're going to work with the steering committee and we're going to establish a lot of those big picture items. So your visions, goals, objectives. Definitely want to put on a community workshop or possibly attend, well, we will attend an existing community event. I know that your tricentennial celebration is coming up September 26th, which looks really fun. And your Limerick Community Day is coming up, I think, in August, so that also looks really fun. Those are definitely times that we could attend and be there to just engage with the public. We know public engagement is super important.
And one of the things that I'll emphasize that's different about our approach is that we are going to listen at those events with a purpose. A lot of times we'll generate specific questions for the community survey or through other venues that we want to collect input so that it all feeds back and we can really identify those common themes and issues that are important priorities for the community. A lot of times planning efforts, we show up, we say, hey, we're here, we have fun at the event, but it's kind of like, so what, right? We want to think about what are we hearing specifically? How does that relate to what we heard at the steering committee meeting or the public meeting that we had a month ago? So all those things tie together. So we ask very specific questions, also opportunities to give general feedback as well, but so that all of that can funnel into identifying answers to these key questions so we get the priorities of the community clearly defined.
We also, at these community events, we are super deliberate on getting input. So we will, if we see that a lot of people aren't coming up to our tent, we will make sure that we get out with the public and make sure that we're engaging it with them. Other than just them approaching us, we also want to approach them as well. So this slide is just focusing on our steering committee working sessions and what kind of discussions we're going to have. So we have obviously our project kickoff meeting that's going to be super important. We're going to get to know the township. We're going to talk about community engagement. I know community engagement is a big thing in Limerick, and that is very important. We're also going to talk about the mission statement, goals. We're going to do lots of activities surrounding future land use maps, and we definitely want to take some time and talk about your SALDO and your zoning ordinance. It is very important that those two are aligning, so we can make recommendations and focus on what items need to be amended in those two ordinances. And then we're obviously going to talk about the implementation strategies and the goals and how we're going to achieve them. And then we'll take a big look at the draft comprehensive plan and have a meeting specifically on just that draft and items that need to be reviewed further. So we are very deliberate with our steering committee meetings. We love to engage with them, but we also need to make sure that we know how to appropriately engage with them. So if they're a type of group that just likes discussion, then we'll facilitate those discussions. If they're a type of group that likes activities, we like activities too. We think it's very cool and important to get the committee members up and working together. So whether that be through, we like to try to think of out-of-the-box activities. So whether that be, you know, everybody brings the pictures of things that they love about Limerick, things that they want to change, like problem areas, things that make them think of Limerick's future. And like that's going to start a good discussion on these areas of Limerick Township that are either important or need to be focused on more. We also do lots of dot maps. So we love dot maps. They're very classic, but we love them. They're helpful on knowing like which areas of Limerick need to be preserved, which ones you think that should be in a growth area. So we have lots of out-of-the-box activities that we like to bring to our townships, just depending on what the steering committee wants to do and how they respond appropriately. Phase 3 is all about prioritizing goals. We're going to create that draft comprehensive plan, and then we're also going to facilitate meetings with your boards and commissions. So we'll have a planning commission and a board of supervisors meeting, a joint meeting, and we'll kind of collaborate with both of those boards to get kind of like a final product, right? So that's good. We're going to present the draft plan to them. Phase 4 is about finalizing and adopting. You know, this part is not super glamorous, but it is very important. We have planning commission recommendation meetings, public hearings. We're definitely, you know, very big on the NPC requirements, so we know all about those requirements and how to properly notice a meeting. So we'll definitely help you through that process and help you get those public notices ready to go, and how to distribute your public notices appropriately.
I feel like I have to point out that that picture up there, that woman is not about to slap the gentleman that she's talking to. That was a great open house we had up in the Poconos earlier this year, and it was just a very lively discussion, and she talked with her hands. There was no physical contact.
Yeah, some people just like to talk with their hands. So we definitely wanted to talk a lot about your public engagement. We know that this is very important, especially with the comp plan. So we, as I said before, we have multiple avenues that we like to do public engagement. Things that we like to focus on, and we saw in your RFPs, community surveys. We definitely know a lot about community surveys. We actually just recently did a community survey for a township and got over 550 responses, which was amazing. Sometimes we only get a couple, like not that many responses for a more rural township, but with Limerick's population, we would want to get a robust amount of community survey input. So we'll definitely work with the residents on that. We'll definitely be attending those community events. We love to also just like think out of the box with community events too. So obviously like we can definitely attend the community days, but we also could facilitate maybe like we come to a coffee place and have like maybe more of a focused area group of people who come in for coffee and get their feedback. We love that different type of opinion because it's definitely going to get the voice out of people who wouldn't normally come to a board meeting, who wouldn't normally come to a community open house. We definitely can do community open houses too. We've facilitated those. We just recently did one in Penn Township with over 100 residents that attended, and it was really great. We got a lot of good feedback, but we know it's very important to focus on public engagement. We will be facilitating up to 6 stakeholder interviews and focus groups. So, you know, people who are very influential in the community, whether it's a developer, whether it's, you know, you're going to have your business owners. Those are going to be super important to interview just to get their feedback. And we already talked about community survey. Talked about the community workshop. We definitely would love to do mapping exercises, vision activities. We think this is the best way to get public feedback rather than just having a presentation. This will help get the people who aren't as like loud spoken be able to still give us their voice. And we know that this is something that's important to do. We're going to do public engagement throughout the entire project, but we know it's very important in the beginning. So we'll be focusing a lot on that in the beginning. And then of course through phase 3 and phase 4, we'll be focusing on board meetings. Those are the meetings where the public's going to attend, but we're going to be presenting the draft and getting some feedback from the board members. And that is our presentation. We obviously want to take questions.
50 seconds over, Amanda. We better just stop there. We'd want to be docked.
Oh, no, you're good. Ms. Schuller, do you have any questions?
I do. So it's going to be kind of lengthy if you have to repeat it twice. I apologize. How do you recommend through the steering committee to take into account what the community says, but the community, we have a lot of things in our community that pull from other areas, from other our communities that border us. Mm-hmm. So we have the trail, we have the Schuylkill River, we have Mandarack Park. We have a lot of users from other communities, but we really do want to hone in on the people that live here and it's in their backyard at the same time of listening to everybody. What advice do you give the steering committee to have an open mind to hear everybody, but at the same time, Limerick Township is doing a Limerick Township comp plan. So how, do you understand what I'm saying?
100%.
Okay.
It is a very common problem, or very common challenge, I'll say.
Okay.
Yes. And so we definitely want to hear that input from the surrounding communities and the residents from the surrounding communities, because you can't build a moat and put up a wall. From an operational standpoint, sometimes it's you wish you could. Not that we want to keep anybody out for any particular reason, but as you said, this is Limerick's plan, Limerick's facilities, Limerick's resources, tax, staff, etc. But the reality is there may be folks coming in or through to work or to recreate. So we can certainly, as we go through the background information process, look at everybody's comp plans. If they have recent-ish comprehensive plans, see what their priorities are. Maybe some of them are focus group. Maybe there are specific community groups or municipal representatives from those surrounding communities that we often will talk to and say, hey, you know, what's a key priority for the folks that you know live in your community, maybe work here or vice versa. And then we bring all that to the steering committee, and there is an exercise in prioritization, not specifically our core issues are more important than those who are working here or recreating here or passing through, but there is, you know, a wish list, let's say, that we're going to generate from all the feedback. And the steering committee has a tough job of prioritizing that. And a lot of times what we do is we will identify specific factors to help prioritize. So if it could be cost, it could be timeline, it could be, sometimes we have then exercises that are, for lack of better words, who will this project or this strategy benefit the most and how? And maybe we prioritize the ones that will more directly benefit the residents over folks that live outside the township. So it's really about listening to everybody, bringing it all to the steering committee, and then going through a very deliberate and structured exercise to make some tough decisions about priority setting. And the thing too about priority setting is you don't want to get rid of the things that are low priorities, right? So we'll keep it all there. So maybe there's something that's important to the folks that come from the outside and recreate here, but that's a lesser of priority, maybe of a trail connection to the outside community. But it's still on the list.
Ms. Irwin?
If you had to take anything out of your timeline to shorten it to around 12 to 14 months, what would you take out to be able to achieve that timeline?
Oh, we could achieve that timeline if there was a commitment on the back end that the adoption process would go rapid fire, right? So that's usually where we put some wiggle room in. In this business, I've been doing it for 27 years, we've been around for 16 years. There's never a process that goes perfect because we all live and die by those monthly meetings. So if the process goes as scheduled and we get towards the end and we're ready for the Planning Commission to make a recommendation, have our hearing, and we can get those meetings scheduled and advertised, we can certainly shorten up the process.
Okay.
This feels a little bit like a Senate hearing. Although I've never been in a Senate hearing, but.
Dr. Walraven?
I'm not sure how to follow that up.
You can handle
I
the
don't
truth.
think that we look like senators.
No, I
do
just meant
we?
the questions, yeah. Well, you could, anybody could be a senator.
I guess.
True.
Yes, we're all eligible to become senators. What are the three most significant planning challenges or opportunities you see for Limerick Township?
Well, I think we'll do one of each maybe. So opportunity, build on the momentum that you have with lots of good past planning efforts. A lot of places you go in and there is no past planning. So we try and make the comp plan be everything to everybody, and sometimes that can be very difficult and becomes nothing to everybody. So the fact that you've got good planning, specific plans, you've got things like impact fees that are in place, your township clearly has its act together, then that is definitely an opportunity to say, we can just hit the ground running, right? The public input will be the focus, listening will be the focus, and we know that you know how to do the implementation part, and we'll set you up for success. I think one challenge would be in townships like yours, as far as I know it so far, there's a lot of different dynamics, right? You're beyond the, you've been growing for quite some time. You know growth, you know how to manage growth. Maybe closer on the horizon is what do we look like when we're fully built out? What's that dynamic? And sometimes understanding where you are, like in your, maybe you're in your teens or early 20s in terms of a life cycle of a community, that can be a challenging time because you still have one foot maybe in the past and 1 foot in the future, and you're trying to figure out where you want to go. So that could look like things like, what does open space preservation look like as development continues? And how do we make tough decisions around the strategies that we want to identify to implement that, which sometimes can be challenging. What does it look like in terms of shaping the future growth that we have, that we're going to have left in the community? Do we want high density, low density, residential, commercial, and understanding that you're in that in-between phase can be a challenge, because again, you can't do it all, and you also can't rewind the clock. A lot of communities at this phase will say we just want to stop and put up the moat or the toll booth, but you can't, right? It's just kind of the horses out of the barn, but there are opportunities for shaping the future growth, preserving open space, focusing on recreation like you clearly have in the past, so you have that balance of open space and development. Good planning in the past and you're in your teenage years, early 20s, that's a challenge.
Mr. Maroney?
Okay, my question is, tell us about a comprehensive plan that you completed for a municipality similar to Limerick, and what measurable outcomes result from that plan? Like what items did they approve or pass as a result of your plan?
Sure. I'll give you two that come to mind immediately. I worked in Cranberry Township, Butler County for years in two stints, and then in both planning and a management role. And then they engaged with us after, I think it was as Strategic Solutions after I was gone, to update their comprehensive plan. So the comprehensive plan update, I'll talk about that because it wasn't as an employee, but as an employee I did lead their comprehensive planning effort. And then when they brought us back, we updated the plan to focus on a specific issue that was sort of driving a wedge between some of the community groups, and we facilitated a process to update the plan so there was a structure for it, the comprehensive plan, and there were some defined boundaries about what we can and can't do at the municipal level within that planning context. But try to make we found solutions that made everybody happy, restructured a community group that focused on, it was diversity issues and understanding how that interplays with the rest of township operations and their plan for the future as identified in the comp plan. So out of that came very specific successes in terms of continued support from community members who previously were fighting against the township on certain issues. Neshannock Township in Lawrence County, we've been planning there for years. We've done 2 comp plans for them. The thing that we love to do, and honestly still gets me up in the morning to do this kind of work, is when you see the stuff come out of the plans. So their park, for example, we've planned through the comprehensive plan as a priority. We've done master plan for the park, and then we help them secure grant funding to do major renovations to their park that actually draws from nearby Newcastle, similar to the first question, and other communities throughout the county. So that to me is one of the successes that I love, because I get to see that park. And on the economic development side in Neshannock, I get to see, we just had a huge groundbreaking for a massive expansion of an existing distribution center for a worldwide company that took years of planning, that came out of the comp plan, and you get to see it come out of the ground. That's what I love. Yeah. So Neshannock and Cranberry, probably 2 close ones to you guys. Not physically, but.
You have 4 minutes.
Cranberry's near Mars, PA, correct?
Yeah.
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 That's what I thought. So my question for you is, how do you ensure the final comprehensive plan reflects the priorities of the Limerick Township residents rather than staff, consultants, or the Board of Supervisors?
Oh yeah, it's not our plan. So that's the steering committee, and that's where I say it's tough decision making. Our role is not to come in and tell the steering committee or anybody else in the community what they should be doing. We listen, we identify their priorities, we bring best practices from all over the Commonwealth, including communities near here. Salisbury Township, we're wrapping up, that's not super near here, but on this side of the state, wrapping up a comp plan. And then we bring that to the steering committee. And those folks have to make the tough decisions about what's going to be prioritized. We can help guide and advise and say, these are some tools, this is what it would take to implement X, Y, and Z, here's what worked in Neshannock or Springfield or Salisbury or wherever, and bring that to you guys and give you our advice. But we are not in a situation, it's not our approach to come in and say, you guys should be doing this. So we will make sure it's your plan, for sure, the community's plan.
Yeah, sorry, just to piggyback on that, because, sorry, I was able to actually hear that question. It's just a little like echoey. So when it comes to like the community and, making sure that we know that is their plan. So we love to come to community engagement events, almost like with a blank slate. We of course will go through your plans and know the community and understand like what you guys want, but we like to show the community that like they're almost in control in a sense, right? So we like to say like, this is a blank slate. What do you guys like? What's your big vision? We think that that's a better way of an approach, just to gain their trust, and also know that they're the ones kind of making and guiding the big decisions, and because it is a community plan, and that's we think that that's the way that it works best.
Thank you. Do we have any other board comments or questions?
Can you mention a project on this side of the state that you've done a little more? Not that I'm very familiar with Cranberry Township, because I actually worked in Cranberry Township.
Oh, from here?
Yeah. Yeah, so I love Cranberry. I used to work for Westinghouse, so Cranberry Township. But can you talk about one that's local to southwestern PA?
Yeah, sure. So I mentioned Salisbury, it's a little south of Allentown, so Lehigh Valley. We're wrapping up a comp plan there. We've done work in Allentown for years. Poconos, Southeast PA. I know West Manheim Township, which is not super far from here. We're doing zoning and saldo ordinances for them, building on their comp plan. We didn't do the comp plan, but using the comp plan to help guide the ordinances. Should have brought a map of clients.
That's okay. Just wanted to see if there were some local. Okay.
Yeah.
Anyone else have a question?
So is Greg, who's in the Caribbean right now, going to be the project, the main contact?
Greg and I. All right. So
the two of you will share it?
Yep.
And are you both on the western side of the state?
Greg's in State College. He's about 3 hours from here, and I don't know. I'll find out tomorrow morning. We're on our way back from Delaware, so I came a circuitous route. I think I'm about 5. But honestly, I know it's a question I get all the time, and I think maybe I'm weird, but I work all over the state, and it really doesn't bother me. Yeah. I was just up in Elk
You have
County
good
doing a
Hilton
training.
points or whatever.
Marriott,
Yeah,
thank you
Marriott
very much.
points.
And I have 30,000 miles on my car that's not even a year
Oh.
old. Yeah.
Thanks.
I love to travel. It's a beautiful state, fortunately.
You feel that the eastern part of the state and the western part are different in the way they feel priorities and
100%. There's a line somewhere in Franklin County, and when you cross that line, you go ahead 10 years if you're heading east, and you go backwards 10 years if you're heading west, from a planning standpoint. A lot of the tools that are used in eastern PA have been used for a very long time, like the impact fees. You guys have impact fees, recreation fees, open space preservation. We're up in Monroe County doing a plan. They've got years and years of dedicated funding for open space acquisition. Western PA, we're 10 to 15 years behind you in using all of those tools, so there's definitely a huge difference. We've worked, like I said, all over the state and with municipalities all over that spectrum, but there's a big difference. Yep. And we do training for PSATs, and I talk to communities, very rural communities versus fully built out communities versus growing communities, and they all have different issues, but when you draw that line up and down in Franklin County, there's definitely a theme east versus west. Not good or bad, just different approaches. We're kind of the Wild West in Western PA. Out here, Eastern PA, a little more advanced.
I don't know how I feel about that statement being from PA.
Well, it's true. It's true.
I just want to know if you eat French fries on your salad.
100%.
There we go.
Yes.
And on your sandwich.
Yes, and only Heinz ketchup. Yes.
Perfect.
I ate something really nasty in Delaware. I don't know what kind of ketchup it was, but it was not Heinz.
There we go. Well, I appreciate your time this evening, and that is that.
Thank you all.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, everybody.
And as we close the meeting tonight, I do want to thank staff. Greta, thank you. Dan, Tim, our newest employee, and you guys did a great job as well.
Brianna and Emily.
Yeah, I was going to say Brianna and Emily. I just can't remember which one was ushering.
Emily.
Emily.
Yeah, that was great to have somebody through.
It was, I just would see her like swoop by, and then somebody was opening up the door. So I want to thank you guys very much, and thank you to the public who came out to hear the presentations tonight. Much appreciated. And our work session is adjourned.